Welcome to this final screencast for Organizational Analysis and Change. In this final podcast, we're looking at business schools, and particularly we'll look at the nature and the purpose of the business school. As you'll find out, we are going to be relatively critical of what the business school is today, but we're going to look at a number of ways that these issues and these problems could potentially be addressed. And the rationale to have this as a topic in the first place is that normally we are pretty clueless about what the university is. There's a great book on this topic called Clueless in Academe, and you can have a look at it. It's not directly relevant to this topic, but it's relevant to the idea of the university more generally. So this is the rationale to have this topic being taught in a business school, and especially for third years, because it's a way to address that cluelessness and to make the issue of what a business school is for into an issue that we could debate. And part of this lecture was also a debate between different members from the business school advocating different views of what the business school is for. I just started off with one of these videos. You'd find these videos for most of the business schools across the UK and the US, which is kind of a commercial why you should come to Cardiff. This particular one is looking at Cardiff.
First-class businesses require first-class education. If you're interested in a business education but not quite so sure of where to study, then I suggest you consider Cardiff, because Cardiff Business School is already training many of the next generation of Asian entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so this is a very typical way of articulating the purpose of the business school. It's a way for students to come in and later to get a job. And in a way, this is the kind of two different narratives, the two different stories, if you like, about a business school or about education and universities more generally. Is it a matter of making people, and with better people, that's debatable, but it could be developing people with critical faculties, people who are well equipped to defend and promote democratic ideals. Or the other one is that education and the university is about giving students the skills to do well on the job market and make as much money as possible. So this, if you like, are the two competing stories, the two competing narratives that go through the entire topic that we discuss here. So in a way, this lecture is divided into two sections. One is about the problems associated with business schools, and the second is how these problems might be addressed. So to start off with the problems, how about the scientific credibility? I mean, if you look at some of the founding fathers of management, you've got Taylor and you've got Elton Mayo. What you find is that a lot of the things that they were promoting were highly speculative and did not necessarily have a strong basis in science. Rather, it was more about, it was questions about ethics and questions about values that they were promoting. Both with regard to Taylor and with regard to Mayo. And if you want, what they were doing in trying to establish management as a scientific subject was to maintain, if you like, a division between the oppressors and the oppressed. And this is a very significant quote from Frederick Winslow Taylor, where he says that there's a huge difference between those who can manage and those who are in a position that they should be managed. So this is something that comes out of a reading called The Management Myth, which is highly recommended. It's to be found on the blog. So the question is, if you get into a business school and you come out of the other end, what kind of students do business schools produce? And there's been a lot of critical inquiry into these matters, and some people have argued that, this is just some questions I was asking, but some people have argued, and this is, you find a longer version of this on the blog, but they argued in the book called Academically Adrift that 45% of all undergraduate students, this is in the United States, did not learn anything over their first 2 years. And the business schools did have even worse figures than that. You have a longer version of this that you can find on the blog, and a good talk by Josipa Roxa and Richard Aron. So the other question is, if you go into business, will this make you more ethical? There's been some interesting studies where this was taking place at Cornell, and they took 3 classes, one in economics, one with game theory, a more conventional study of economics. The other one was economics with a professor specialized in China and developmental economics, and finally astronomy. And then they were giving them different forms of moral dilemmas to see, if you find a $100 note next to an envelope with a name on it, would you put it into the envelope or not? It turned out that the people studying economics game theory had a serious decline in ethics, whereas those studying economics with the development had a slight decline. Those studying astronomy had no decline at all. They were just at the same level as when they started. And I just gave some examples here. These are, that we find in our schools, but I did a version of that. This is a person who pioneered money laundering, educated at Harvard. Here's one from Wharton, who is serving a long prison sentence for insider crime, and here's another one who is in prison at the time. And some people have argued that business schools have become complicit in unethical, even illegal behavior. And some people have claimed that people educated in business schools were to a large extent responsible for the financial meltdown and also a number of the more high-profile corporate scandals over the last 10 years or so. But at least if you study in business, you should have a good career opportunities in business. Again, this is a critical text, The Management Myth. It's based on a book, but you have a lengthy article published in The Atlantic. By the way, a really good magazine that I could recommend you to subscribe on if you want a good subscription. What he claims in this text is that pretty much all of the management and business books you find these days are nothing more than variations on Taylor and Mayo. And even Taylor and Mayo had pretty simple argument. Taylor would say, you need to be efficient, people are rational. And Mayo said, look, we're dealing with people here, we have to think about it in more ingenious ways. But still with this similar end goal, to make people follow and do what management would say. And even what Taylor and Mayo say, you could find in much better versions, it is claimed, if you read Rousseau or if you read Shakespeare, because it comes down to very basic, elementary questions of human life. Issues of how you control other people, how you how individual agency would interact with societies or structures or systems that within which you act. So in a way, the claim here is that if you want to learn management, you may be better off reading Rousseau and Shakespeare, at least better off than reading some of the so-called airport management books that you find in abundance these days.